Cyberspace is a very contested place. And some years back, I remember one of India's leading business people had said that data is the new oil. And at that time, I had co-written an article which said data is inflammable oil, right? Because the way there are benefits, the other side is also, uh, I should say, seriously dark. Because the way data can be used today from the adversarial side, earlier it was just a question of an annoyance that somebody would steal data or somebody would cause an annoyance. Then it became a business question. Then it became an existential question. And today it's a geopolitical question. So you see, if you look at what has happened in the last 1 year, you see elements in the cyberspace have again and again determined geopolitics. So look at the Russia-Ukraine war. A lot of it is around data. That before the war started, cyberspace operations started, breaches started, and there are these advanced persistent threat groups like APT29, and there are these very well-resourced, military groups which operate in cyberspace, which have exceptionally good TTPs, which have their own, tool chains, and none of the existing, certifications or products are going to be a bulwark against these nation-state groups or these APTs. And the way they use this data, that if there's a single data breach, this data is then leveraged for various things. For example, disinformation. So if you, let's say, are able to take data from somewhere, then using that data, you can create a number of avatars, which can then start interfering with, let's say, the democratic election process of a country. You saw the last US elections and the way there were interferences by Russia in the information space. So weaponization of information is a very important thing. Similarly, in the corporate world, industrial espionage has been a very, very serious concern. So look how it again, cybersecurity and data security ties. Because what is valuable is data, they're coming behind your data. And generally, from the security perspective, we are at max looking till our periphery or probably going for a threat hunting paradigm, doing XDR, whatever. But we are not aware of the adversarial ecosystem. That what is the adversarial ecosystem doing? Sometimes they may not need to use any sophisticated tools. There are access brokers, initial access brokers who specialize in access. And the adversarial world is very modular. That access broker is somebody else, exploit developer is somebody else, the one who does phishing and sends link is somebody else, the one who does lateral movement and exfil is somebody else. So in this whole kill chain, it's a very modular kind of cybercrime as a service which has evolved world over. The irony is that nation-state groups, fin crime groups, and even hacktivists like Anonymous, they use common TTPs, and it's all shareable. So let's say something like Cobalt Strike can be used by any group. You may find some signatures somewhere, but these groups are freely sharing this kind of knowledge across, and then they are behind your data. And it is not just you, your policies, your encryption, your management of authentication, or the kind of controls that you put around your infrastructure that is going to be enough. We have to look at it from the geopolitics lens also, that there are no norms in cyberspace today. And since there are no norms, so, there's a 1945 Charter of the United Nations, which is about warfare, which talks about two principles. It talks about jus ad bellum and jus in bello. It talks about what are the conditions under which a war can be fought and how to conduct a war. But there is nothing like this in cyberspace. And when there is nothing like this in cyberspace, then it's a free-for-all. And once it's a free-for-all, then you would never know how would a nation react to a cyber attack or to a breach. You would be amazed to know that for the first time, a cyber attack has been repelled with a kinetic attack. So Hamas was doing some cyber operations which led Israel to actually bomb the cyber headquarters of Hamas. So it was the first time in the history, human history, where a cyber operation was kinetically simply blown off. So what I intend to say that cyberspace is no more just computers. It has started affecting our day-to-day life. And at the center of it is data and how to protect data. So you may apply, you may apply tools, you may increase your capabilities, you may increase your spending, you may create a legal framework around it, you may have insurance. But somewhere this governance of cyberspace, norms of cyberspace are broken. Because today, attribution is difficult. You don't know who is attacking. Somebody may come up with a false flag operation. And the day there would be a serious war, you would find that cyber elements would be the most important elements. And everything is being attacked. Schools are being attacked. There are ransomware gangs which are focusing on schools. And why ransomware has become more deadly today? Data angle. Because of the double extortion. That they leverage this data. And they use this data to extort. You see, there was recently, last week, one attack in the health sector in Australia. Now look at the kind of fallouts that are there. So there is sensitive personal data about abortions, which is being leaked on the net. So this is how, information can be weaponized. Similarly, let's say if there are dating apps, and if somebody breaches that dating app, then that information is sensitive and it can be used to blackmail people. And that blackmail can be for any purpose. So we have to, as world come together and decide about proper norms in cyberspace. Today, the governance of internet is very lopsided. All the platforms, they basically started with this Communications Decency Act, Section 230C, which gives them a carte blanche called Safe Harbor. And this Safe Harbor says that anything posted on these platforms is not a responsibility of any of the social media platforms. Now this has led to a place where this has become a free for all ground for terrorist radicalizers, pedophiles, financial cybercriminals, people who are engaging in phishing, or simply anarchists. And there are no controls around it. And somewhere you need to put a kind of ring fence and some sanity in this. Internet governance bodies also are lopsided. China has been strategically very conscious of this, and you see the kind of representation which China has in ICANN and other bodies today. So slowly, China is taking over most of the bodies which govern the internet space. And as a nation, we have to understand that there should not be a gap between our security and prosperity. So I always give this historical example that the last time our prosperity was much more and our security was less was the Khyber Pass. It led to 1,000 years of subjugation. That you were a very rich country which was unprotected, and somebody came just on horses, some bloody beggars. They came on horses and subjugated you. This is again going to happen. That if you look by all projections, we are going to grow. China's growth rate projected next year is 0.4%. Our least projection is 6.4%. And we are going to continuously grow for the next 10, 20 years. And we would be, in the next 15 years, if not the first, then at least the second economy across the world. And this has to be essentially digital, right? The fruits of all this will come from the digital space. One great thing that India has done has looked at technology as common good. So the way UPI has been created, the way Aadhaar has been created, it has been created as an India stack on which you can build various things. And since technology as a common good has given people so much of a leeway to create products around this, this would become, a place which would generate prosperity for the nation. But somewhere again, the Indian mentality that we do not want to spend on security. You all are much aware, you come from this background, how difficult it has been for you to convince, your own board and your own governance structures to spend on cybersecurity. I come from government. Imagine the difficulty there. The architect of India's data protection bill, Justice Sri Krishna, is here, and I totally agree with him when he says that norms should equally apply to government. I know I'm taking a risk by saying this openly here on the stage, but I believe that norms should first apply to government, because government data is much more important. Because government has a bounden responsibility to protect the data of the citizen. And with data, it's not just a breach of privacy. The kind of harms that can ensue from breach of data are immense. So I think government should lead by an example and start with applying all data protection principles to itself. But see, various things come up in the nitty-gritty, like non-personal data. There's a Gopal Krishnan committee report which talks about non-personal data. It also talks about data stewardship. These are very interesting concepts. And let's see how, they actually devolve. Or this account aggregator system, which RBI has been talking since 2016. I think 6 people have been given license for this NBFC-AA, where basically, like your KYC data, your data of you or your transactional data would be stored encrypted in a way in which the account aggregator has no access to it, with a PKI. And there would be a granular consent structure built into this. For example, if I want to share my date of birth or my transaction history with my insurer for the next 60 days, it can be built in this consent. And every time when there is an access to this data, I would get an update. So these are some good developments which would kind of technologically ensure that data is still used, because otherwise we would come to a situation where we would put so many locks around the data that it would cease to have economic value. There were some very interesting questions in the earlier sessions about whether 6 hours is sufficient time to report a breach or not. But see, we are the same people. When we deal with the EU, we are very happy to comply with GDPR. And GDPR is, I should say, one of the most draconian acts around data. But somewhere still, GDPR has helped improve the security posture all across the world. And it should not be difficult for us, because in essence, our data protection bill is supposed to be, if not deriving from, at least similar to GDPR. And people have experience with GDPR today. People have experience with a granular understanding of how GDPR functions in terms of supply chain, in terms of your own employees, in terms of your customers' data, in terms of cross-border data flows. So that kind of templatization and adoption should not be difficult in India, because we also have a lot of homegrown expertise around GDPR today. And I feel that the general level of expertise in India around cybersecurity, around data protection, is exceptionally good. It's top class in the world. And we were having a discussion. I mean, I met some of my old team members whom I was working with way back when we were establishing Maharashtra Cyber, and we were discussing how this field has changed. Because earlier when you used to talk about cyber in 14, 15, 16, there would be like 5 people who understood you. But today there are 500 people who are speaking something which is difficult for you to understand. So the kind of talent that has grown up in India is immense. However, we still do not have indigenization of security technology. If we do not have indigenization of security technology, we will keep on purchasing everything expensive from outside, on which you would have limited reliance on. And that is why even the RBI cybersecurity framework talks about utile technology investments. It says that there should be investments made in security technology. And I think it is time that industry as a whole and also government decides to make investments in cybersecurity, which would be good to save your bucks also. But imagine this, if a small nation like Israel, it's 450 kilometers across, right? And the thinnest point, it is like 5 kilometers. If they can give cybersecurity to the world, I think the number of their total population, we may be having more engineers than that. So why can't we, as a nation, and we are smart people, why can't we as a nation take upon the leadership in cyberspace with so much talent? We just need to orient ourselves, put our brains together, put our investments in the right place, and build around this a proper framework of policy, so that tomorrow we would be able to protect the prosperity of the nation from any kind of possible attacks and colonization. And I believe that the way cyberspace is contested, similarly there is too much of contestation around the data protection bill. We actually watch with frustration as to when it is going to come. And let me tell you, I'll be the happiest as a law enforcement officer when the data protection bill comes, because it would give me a chance to protect my citizen. Today, without a data protection bill, my citizens are left without any recourse, right? Today something happens, I go to a platform, I ask for certain details, I do not get anything. Once data protection bill comes, there would be a kind of understanding of the rights of the victim, and we would be able to give them some kind of redress. So, interesting times ahead, and I would, as a data security professional, I would really like to congratulate you all for having done this wonderful service, and I know it's a thankless job. Any kind of security job is thankless. So, I used to run traffic for Mumbai for 4 years, ask me. So, whatever you do is insufficient and people are always unhappy. So, security job is like that, but I would like to congratulate you all, and I believe that we are moving in the right direction, but somewhere we need to have a better vision of things to come. Thank you so much.